First of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the welcoming. You know, there are many things, many memories of my childhood, and I cannot cover all of them at the same time. And I want to try to stay relevant to your event on a, let's say, positive memory of me as a child. Traveling with my dad from Ramallah to Tel Aviv.
Hassan Yousef, one of the leaders of
Shin
Hamas.
Hassan Yousef, one of the co-founders of Hamas. We traveled all the way from Ramallah to Tel Aviv to the beach. We had not even one checkpoint. The people were nice. When we got lost in the streets of Tel Aviv, people helped us navigate our way out. We went to the zoo. We visited our friends in the villages surrounding Haifa. There was no problem. And things really changed dramatically after the first Intifada. So this is like where, you know, I'm heartbroken, you know, today to visit Tel Aviv and just go back in my memory. I was like, oh my God, how far did we go in this chaos, and how the revenge and the retaliation brought us to this place. So there are lots of traumas of my childhood. There's lots of violence. I have many reasons that brought me to this place. It's not a one or two or even 10 turning points of my life. It's all the choices that I made, all the things that I witnessed, by the way, as an eyewitness throughout my journey, that brought me to this place. It's a chain of events.
What stood behind your decision? What was the most important to you when you decided to switch sides and start working with Israel? What was your main motive?
There is no such thing as main motive, as much as there are personal reasons. When people want you to cease to exist and you have to fight for your life, your entire life since your childhood, you have a different mentality than the rest of the people. I had fundamental reasons. I, in principle, did not like the violent culture, and I had to fight for myself, to defend myself against abuse, violence, indoctrination. Then there are many things about that culture that I did not like, that they were abusive towards women, towards minority, blind hatred against Jews, Christians. So you can say there are personal reasons, political reasons, ideological reasons, and I needed to break the cycle of confusion. You know, what brought me to that place, I really had no clue why I was born in Ramallah. But I really know what it takes to get out.
Tell me what you had in mind on October 7th. Were you surprised by the brutality of Hamas?
I'm not surprised by Hamas brutality. I witnessed them firsthand in Israeli prison back in 1996, where they killed Arabs, they tortured them for suspicion of collaborating with Israel.
You saw these things in your eyes?
I witnessed it firsthand, and this is actually was the moment that I decided that Hamas is my personal enemy, regardless of my
thought. Your personal turning point.
That was my turning point, one of them, but in prison. So I was not surprised by Hamas brutality, but the magnitude of the attack exceeded my expectations, especially for me personally. I wrote a book about Hamas brutality. I lost my family in the process to tell the world that this is a brutal enemy, that they cannot be trusted. I warned the Israeli intelligence of Hamas taking over Gaza before they took over Gaza. And
did you get any response? Did anyone do something about it?
The honest truth, I'm sure they have representatives here. They had a busy day at office, and after that, everybody moved on. So then Hamas came to power. They kept growing. And we had the first war in Gaza, the second war, the third war, and they just kept getting more power, more money, more legitimacy, and as I watched the whole thing, while being cancelled by the West, while being abandoned by pretty much everybody, and I thought, that's it, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was wrong about Hamas. But then October 7 happened, and like for me, it really hit me in the worst possible way, because I did not only lose my faith in humanity up to that point, that like how rigid they could be, that someone, an eyewitness, came from within to warn the world, tell them this is not good news. And instead of listening, they canceled me from every arena. And I was okay of being homeless for many years.
What do you mean by homeless?
Shunned completely from my family, without any type of security, abandoned in far, far away. Okay. I prefer not to talk about my personal struggles. Actually, I'm just saying this, like how October 7 really hit me very hard. That when I came back, I really don't see anybody in front of me. I'm not having the patience to rationalize anymore, because now I don't see it only Hamas. Because now I see that we have a much bigger problem, and people want to globalize the conflict.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. By the way, do you feel safe now? You live abroad. Can you say now that you're already free, and you really started a new life, or is it still haunting you?
Well, it looks like I have lots of anger inside me. So how can I be free? For me, I'm not afraid of death. I had near-death experience where I was gone for a long period of time. It was detected by the doctors. I know what's on the other side, and it's my absolute freedom. So whatever, whenever is going to happen, I welcome it. Death is not my enemy, it's my friend.
You feel home with the life you've lived so far, and you've already did many important things, and one of them is the work you do nowadays when you're advocating for Israel. I think you're one of the most effective speakers Israel has in the public and in the international media. Can you tell us a bit about this experience? First of all, do you feel that Israel is running out of credit? Is there a change in the way this conflict is perceived from October 7th till today?
Look, we live in a cruel world. It's so twisted that I cannot understand it completely. That's why from the beginning I tried to rationalize with the people, and I thought now, after seeing the atrocities of October 7, they may realize that what just happened was a genocide. But instead of seeing the atrocity, the tragedy of what Hamas did, that first, they ethnically cleansed some 20 communities based on their religion and culture. Then they took their own children as human shields. Then they took the hostages. In other words, Hamas' strategy was to hit Israel very hard on October 7 and expect from Israel to surrender on October 8th, because they had the hostages. They knew that Israel would be delegitimized globally. So this is their game. But instead of democracies around the globe actually understand Hamas' tactic,
and they're next, that they might be next.
No, at least to realize that this was originally Hamas' tactic to delegitimize Israel globally, to bring Israel to a very dirty war, because Israel would be held accountable. How come you say you are a democracy? What you're doing in Gaza? So they booby-trapped the whole Gaza Strip. They took their own people, their own children as human shields for propaganda. In the morning they killed Jewish children for revenge. In the evening they killed their own children for propaganda. Does it get worse than this?
Do you think that they fake attacks and blame Israel for them?
First of all, they are responsible for lots of death that's happening in Gaza because they have booby traps all over the place. How do I know the difference who killed actually the civilians in Gaza? How would I know the difference? Then they faked photos. They used from other disasters, and the social media spread their propaganda. So this brings us back to the point, on the global level, people don't have the power to discern truth from falsehood. There are hundreds of millions of Muslims, of Arabs around the world who actually connect to the Al-Aqsa Mosque as a holy site. They connect to Palestine as an Islamic entity. Hence, they propagate. And when you have hundreds of millions of people writing and tweeting, and you are
But I'm not referring to the Muslims. I'm talking about the democracies. What's the issue here? Is it like poor PR that Israel is doing, or is it anti-Semitism? How do you explain the bad coverage that Israel is receiving, but almost from day one? How do you explain it? And I saw you handling some really stupid questions lately.
It's not only handling the stupid questions, handling stupidity, period. And the people, look, it's not coincidental that many people go and say, I am Palestine or Palestinian, free Palestine, etc. It's, I think, the victim mentality. The victim mentality that is waiting for help to come from the outside. And this is what really defines Palestinian. Even though Palestine is a colonial entity, the world goes and say, Israel is the colonizer. We didn't know Palestine is the colonizer, because they are not the ones who actually working towards developing the land, integrating.
You mean it needs to be earned? It needs to be earned.
Of course, to move on, this does not come from free. People have to work hard in order to build it. So now, this victim mentality is all over the world, and I think the Palestinian cause attracted people of the same energy level, that all of them identified now with the victim mentality, and they bought the narrative, and instead of changing their own reality, integrating, they were able to change the narrative. So instead of Israel being under the attack, the victim of a genocide, suddenly Israel became committing genocide against the people of Gaza, and worse than this, the hostages became colonizers. So, in principle, you see a humanitarian situation here. It's very clear, it's obvious. We have a 1-year-old infant in Hamas captivity, and the world fails to see that this is humanity. Instead of saying free the hostages, they went on saying free Palestine, an ideology, a concept. It's total insanity.
I saw you got so mad. I think there's one reporter that she didn't get out of her house like since your conversation, since you were so mad. You told her you shouldn't even be. You're not even a human. You shouldn't be a reporter.
Look, the last thing I wanted to speak harshly to a woman in public, right? But this is what they have been promoting. They have been promoting the Middle Eastern ego. They want the Middle Eastern ego to inflate, to take over. And I say, you want to see it? There it is. I can't project it at you. But in general, this woman or others, they have been propagating for many years, and they've been under my watch. I know what they are doing since 2017, some of them since 2014, and that's known as the BDS. This group of people are out there to delegitimize Israel systematically. They have been working on campuses with journalists, with historians, with all type of people, lawyers, and they pay them lots of money. And by the way, the Palestinian Authority is responsible for this. So it did not start since October 7th. Prior to October 7th,
the
BDS was working very hard. So this woman and others, they have been working to delegitimize Israel, spreading allegations of apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing, colonialism, all these allegations that basically meant to make Israel's picture ugly. But in the meantime, they don't care for the Arabs who live in Palestine.
Yeah, I recommend you all to watch this interview. It's really, it was something to learn from about determination when protecting your cause. Let's speak about the hostage deal. At the end of the week, another attempt was made by Israel to reach such an agreement. Do you think it's possible, or is the gap between Hamas and Israel still too wide?
Look, in principle, we should not be negotiating with Hamas.
At all?
We should not be negotiating with the terrorists, period. Yes, in principle.
So how would you deal with the hostage crisis?
Okay, but this is a very sensitive issue because we should never leave anybody behind and understand the principles of the Jewish people, especially after the atrocity of October 7, that Israel has been willing to pay the price, has been willing to actually negotiate through a third party. But this mentality of Hamas is not of this world. They are prepared for the afterlife. They don't belong to this life, period. So their logic, you cannot rationalize with them. In principle, when we sit down on the table with them, we give them legitimacy. And the global support Hamas achieved in the past 7 months lengthened this war, gave them legitimacy, gave them hope that their strategy is working. Because if the world got united to say free the hostages, what Hamas did was a genocide, is not acceptable, was a capital crime, requires a capital punishment. If the world was united, Hamas would have finished in a month, in a few weeks. But because the world gave Hamas the hope that their atrocity is a form of resistance, means that is justified.
What should Israel do right now if you're saying not to negotiate with them?
Send them to the afterlife.
Yeah, but we haven't achieved that yet. We're trying.
We send him where he belongs. And all the other Hamas leaders, they cannot get away with this crime they committed. It's not only a crime against Israel. People of consciousness, we cannot just watch and see Hamas storming peaceful communities, pro-peace by the way, and wipe them out. They killed animals, they burned trees, they destroyed houses, they destroyed life, every form of life.
But don't you think that the hostages don't have this time? We need to get them out right now, especially the women, by the way. As a woman, I'm very, very worried and disturbed about the young woman that we have over there in Gaza. So don't you think that based on the alternatives, maybe negotiation is still the right path to go?
Look, I wouldn't close the venue towards negotiations. You leave that. If they come to their reason, they are willing to release some of the hostages for whatever price that Israel can afford. Because Israel cannot surrender only because of the hostages. Like as precious, as important, the hostage situation, but Israel cannot kneel to Hamas, and that's Hamas' strategy. This is their psychological warfare, so we have to be aware of that. Now, we keep the door open if they are willing to compromise, but negotiations with Hamas is not going to change Hamas' fate, because Hamas' fate now is written, and it's the death penalty. Their death warrant has been issued, and even nobody, no authority on earth can reverse that. So whether they want to negotiate or not, I personally will not accept less than that. We should have taken Rafah first. We should have closed the Philadelphia corridor first and cut all Hamas supplies. But by the way, I'm not criticizing the government. I'm saying today we know a lot more.
And after there were the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to halt the operation in Rafah, you still think we should move on, even though there might be consequences for Israel?
Listen, now we need a strong leadership and we need unity, because this type of courts, international courts, they don't have legitimacy, they don't have power, they don't have authority. And who gave them the authority to begin with? Who wrote the original law? And who is responsible for this law? Why am I supposed to obey? So the only thing that I think the Israeli government is compromising, they don't want to lose the global support that fast. But don't you see that we're already doing this? That we already condemned, we already accused, we already treated as criminals anyway. So I'd say we do whatever it takes, and I think it's just a matter of few weeks to seal Rafah, eliminate the fleeing forces of Hamas, and hopefully rescue as much as we can of the hostages and just close this chapter.
We hope they come back as soon as possible. By the way, how do you think Hamas perceives the inner debate in Israel about the hostages? Because we see them trying to take advantage of it in a very manipulative and disgusting way.
This is Hamas psychological warfare. As I told you, they wanted Israel to surrender on October 8th because they had the hostage card. And this did not happen. So they release videos, they know that there is division in the political views in Israel. They're counting on that. And this is why my message was to the hostage families, which I met with them in the past couple of days, and their representatives, that lift the pressure of the government, because the government does not have the hostages. So when you go and say free the hostages now or bring them home now, you need to be a little bit realistic. I know it's a slogan, but because the Israeli government does not have the hostages. And the entire tactic of Hamas is to use the family's emotional situation to pressure the government. They are hoping that the Israeli government would collapse, the Israeli society would get divided, and this is their goal. This is their ultimate goal. They think this is their victory. Globally to delegitimize Israel, and internally to push the government to collapse. And this is what actually gives them a sense of victory. So with that said, we have to understand this psychological warfare. We have to do reverse psychology.
You were talking about the... You said that Israel needs to go the whole way, and I agree with you. How do you view the day after Hamas? There's a big debate in Israel about the day after. We hope we'll reach the day, this day as soon as possible. But do you think that the Palestinian Authority is capable of governing the Gaza Strip? What should replace Hamas? Who?
Listen, I think the Palestinian Authority is a lot more danger than Hamas itself. I personally.
How so?
And in fact, who do you think is causing all this global pressure on Israel? Do you think Hamas? It's the Palestinian Authority. And the Palestinian Authority could have stepped forward from the beginning and say, we condemn what Hamas did, return the hostages unconditionally. Official statement. They did not do even that. They gave Hamas at least the moral legitimacy. Even though they hate Hamas very much, and Hamas hates them very much. Mahmoud Abbas is aging. We don't have anybody to come after him. What would happen when he dies? Why are we still counting on the Palestinian Authority? I don't understand. This is outdated. This is a project that's already finished.
Because we live in a world of alternatives. If it's not Hamas and not the PA, so
okay.
What should be
I tell you something. Before the PLO came to the picture and they ruined everything during the first Intifada, after Oslo, and during the second Intifada. The West Bank or Judea, Samaria, we are Arabs, we're not Palestinians. We don't need this entity, we don't need this political ideology, and this has been my fight, that I want to fight against the foundation of what's so-called Palestine, to begin with, because it's a false narrative. It's a colonial entity. So this is my global strategy, and I do it individually, even though the Israeli government doesn't like my approach, and many of the Jewish communities in the United States don't like my aggressive approach, but I have no other way. That, okay, let's go to square number one. What is Palestine? The most important question. They don't know how to answer. It's a colonial entity. It's created by the British. It was never, Palestine is not an ethnic group. It was never born. Hence, it cannot be free. So, with that said, everything that is related to Palestine, and that includes the Palestinian Authority, that we need to rethink how we approach them. First of all, they should be disarmed to the minimum. No guns. Give them sticks, like in India. Okay? If they want to police, no guns. Then,
who will govern? Israel?
Listen, this is a society governed by tribalism. By tribes. There are major tribes in the West Bank, Hamulas. You empower them, you give them autocrat government, and if necessarily, we will have to bring maybe the Jordanian intelligence to know how to deal with the Muslim Brotherhood mentality. I'm not saying that this is the ideal solution, but no Palestinians should have any arms or any power. And we don't want their global game. We don't want their trying to globalize the intifada. This is, by the way, not only from Israeli point of view, from a global security point of view, that we cannot allow this mentality to spread.
So when you look into the future, how do you see Israel? First of all, is peace possible? And how do you see the options regarding Israeli-Saudi agreement, the Abraham Accords? Will Israel succeed in being part of this region?
What, we lost hope that fast?
Because you were so optimistic, you know.
Well, look, I'm very negative. I'm very negative, and I don't hide my emotions. Okay? The thing is, first of all, what is Israel? We need to realize, for me, my perspective of Israel, that is not a political entity that has political borders. This is just a fortress. It's the final defense line when the world go crazy. Israel is a blueprint. Israel is resilient to time, existed before history. And all these clowns around that's just like copy of a copy of a copy, that they lack the originality, they lack the anchoring in truth, in the 10 commandments, in the commandments of the divine, following the universal design. These people don't realize that Israel's power is anchored in the truth. The chosen one is not means supremacy. It means those who are responsible for the law and for the land. Wherever they go, they have responsibility. They don't only have freedom. They don't want only freedom, and they want to just corrupt earth the way they want. This is Palestinian mentality, and it's not limited only to the people in Judea and Samaria. So, with that said, I don't think Israel can be penetrated. I think Israel is a fortress as we know it as a country here, but also with roots everywhere, because Israel is earth. And Israel is real. Okay, Israel is real.
Thank you so much.
I conclude.
Yeah.
So basically, I don't see actually Israel going anywhere. I think Israel is stronger than any other country.
That's good news that you are here to stay.
Than any other democracy. All democracies in Europe and in other places, they are under real threat. I think Israel has the capacity to defend itself, and we have to finish the war. Even if we have to go other fronts, we have to stay strong, we have to stay united. I am with you, I love you, I stand fundamentally with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to the great queens. דפנה ליאל, תודה רבה. חברים יקרים, תודה רבה.